A splintered face and eyes full of fear. In this state, Oleh arrived in Ivano-Frankivsk by evacuation train from the Luhansk region. He and a dozen other displaced people were then put in one of the regional hospitals.
The scars remain, but they have more or less healed, and life goes on.
Oleh is from Rubizhne, from the city which became the epicenter of hostilities in the Luhansk region. The man says in the micro-district where he lived with his elderly parents, there was one of the factories. Therefore, that part of the city was regularly shelled by the Russian invading army.
It is broken completely. There is only ashes, bricks, concrete, and that's all.
Oleh lost his father in early March last year. He says that he had to bury the father under Russian shelling. Mom was paralyzed. It was impossible to leave the city. All that time, all the roads were already shot through. On April the 5th, 2022, a Russian shell hit their house. Their neighbors managed to call rescuers. On April the 7th, Oleh and his 84-year-old mother, Lyubov Nikiforovna, were able to evacuate from Rubizhne by train. They thought it was only temporarily, Oleh says. He has been living in the Carpathians for a year already, and his mother died back in June. Oleh says there are a lot of those who left home because of the Russian war. Near the grave of his mother, there is a row of graves of Ukrainian IDPs.
Here my mother is buried, and here is some granny's grave. No name, no surname. Who is she? What she said that was written. And further there are many people, also IDPs, who died not on their own land. We are all displaced people. We did not move here of our own free will with our knapsacks. We didn't buy a house here. We fled from the war, fled from grief and horror.
The first 6 months after the evacuation, Oleh was in the hospital, did not have any documents.
I stayed at the hospital because I had no documents. Everything burned completely. And at that time, where could I have been relocated?
His passport was restored by September. This made it possible to move to a shelter which was opened on the basis of a kindergarten. Now 13 people live in the shelter. Among them are many elderly people and those who cannot move independently. They are looked after by their families.
When there are several beds in the room, and you understand, this is it is your everything. Here is your bag, some bedside table, some small table of yours, and that's it. And a plate that was given to me by some women at the hospital.
The kindergarten building is old and yet unsuitable for adults. The main problem is with water. It is collected from a well. A few days ago, Oleh moved to a more modern shelter.
The others are asleep, so I invite you to the kitchen.
By education, Oleh is a food technology specialist. At home in his native Rubizhne, he once earned his living by baking cakes on order. He still loves to cook.
These are our fridges. These are the guys' fridges. This is a borscht, homemade, fragrant.
In addition to state payments, Oleh receives the minimum wage. For half a year, he has been working as a master of industrial training at the Rubizhne Chemical Technical Lyceum. The educational institution is now also in evacuation in the Zhytomyr region. Oleh conducts lectures online. He says it helps take his mind off the weight of losing his home and loved ones.
I didn't move here with my relatives or with friends. Everything was left there, and everything fell apart completely. You always remember that life of yours. I'm seen as a psychologist because the war does not go unnoticed, especially for people who are not watching everything on TV, but the war that took place before our eyes, which ruined my whole life.
Oleh says that he dreams of his own house, in which he does not have to share the kitchen with anyone. If this happens, he wants to do his favorite hobby again, baking cakes.
Now I'm here. My mother is buried here. Ivano-Frankivsk region, although it will be harshly said, forcibly became my native land. And of course, now I really dream and really want to have, albeit very modest, albeit without any fanaticism, but my own housing. Specifically mine, not with or at someone's.
Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Svetlana Malanyuk, Yaroslav Motruk, UATV News.